Hey there, my name is Chris Acton with Acton Creative, and this is A Handwoven Experience, episode 63. And in this episode, we're going to talk about creating a tube using double weave on the loom, no sewing required. It is pretty magical. So let's start at the top. What is double weave? Double weave is very aptly named because you are weaving two layers at the same time. Now, double weave gives us all kinds of unique opportunities to do some very cool things. First of all, as you're weaving two layers at the same time, you can intermix and mingle them. It's called deflected double weave, and create some very cool effects. You can also take your two layers and connect them on one side so that when it comes off the loom and you unfold it, you have double the width for your project, which is great, especially with a small loom. And then lastly, you can take your two layers and you can connect them on both sides, making a tube, which is what we're going to talk about today. Now, this technique isn't for someone who's just started. It takes a little bit of brain power to think through the sequence of events, but you can do it. I have all faith in you. So let's talk about the logistics, how this actually works. When you do plain weave, you have some yarns up and some yarns down. So you have two options, right? Up and down. So if I want to do two layers of plain weave, I need the top layer to have two options and the bottom layer to have two options, which means that a 4-shaft loom is the minimum sized loom that you can use for double weave. And what I mean by that is that you can do two layers of plain weave on a 4-shaft loom. If you have an 8-shaft, you have a lot more options. But your bare bones minimum is a 4-shaft loom for a double weave. So here's how I set mine up. My top layer is going to be shafts 1 and 3. My bottom layer is going to be shafts 2 and 4. I've got a visual. Okay, so this is the goal here. This is what we're doing. We're making a tube on the loom. So my top shafts are 1 and 3. My bottom shafts to make this layer are 2 and 4. Now, I took it one step further with my loom, and I made sure that the body of it for the top was all red, and for the bottom layers, I made sure they were all blue. This is going to help me visually kind of keep track of where I am as well. So let's talk about how I'm going to do this. In my head, I set it up so that when I come across the top, I'm going to lift shaft 1, okay? I'm going to come around to the bottom, and I want shaft 2 to lift, and then 3 across the top, and then 4. So I'm constantly going through this sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Sounds pretty easy. There's a little caveat you have to keep in mind, though. It's going to be easier to show you on the loom. So I'm at the top, right? So shaft number 1 is lifted just like we talked about. I'm going to send my shuttle over this way. Now, shaft number 2 is up next, right? Okay, so if I simply lift shaft number 2, I am going to keep the shuttle, the yarn is going to stay on the top. And that's not what we want. We want to be constantly thinking about going around top and bottom, top and bottom. So instead of just lifting shaft number 2, I'm going to get the entire top layer out of the way, plus shaft number 2. So what I've done is I've lifted 1, 2, and 3. Okay, what that does is that leaves me just this layer left on the bottom. Okay, so then we're coming around. So that ultimately was kind of like in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I lifted shaft number 2 with all the rest. Okay, coming back to the top now. Now I have shaft number 3 lifted. Okay, but I remember the bottom layer is a little weird. I have to lift all the top layer out of the way to get to the bottom layer. So for this time around, I'm going to lift 1 and 3 and 4. So that was part of my sequence. Let's do it one more time just so you can see it. Okay, so here we are at the top. I'm lifting shaft number 1 for the top layer of the tube. I'm coming around. For the bottom layer, I need all of the top layer out of the way. So I've lifted 1 and 3 and 2. All right, then we're ready for shaft number 3, which is back on the top. And then lastly, we're going to do shaft number 4, which again, I have to get all of the top layer out of the way. So I have 1 and 3 and 4 are lifted. So that is how you create a tube on your loom. I'll show you some close-ups of the fabric so you can see how it's dividing and create that space in between the layers. But it's a really cool effect if you can just kind of get your mind around where everything goes. And as far as applications go, I'm gonna fill mine as a pillow. That's gonna be my goal. There's all kinds of other options you can do. So go crazy, be creative. You'll enjoy it, I promise. So that is the nugget I'm leaving you with today. It's a big one, right? But you can do it. I know you can. You'll be making all kinds of tubes on your loom in no time. So have a wonderful week, my fabulous weaving friends. And I'll talk to you very soon with more nuggets just for you. All right, have a good one and happy weaving.